New York City is a place that thrives on movement. From the break of dawn to the quietest hours of the night, millions of people depend on one of the world's most complex and busiest transit systems, the New York City subway. With over 470 stations, thousands of trains, and an average daily ridership that can surpass 5 million on a normal weekday, the subway is the beating heart of the city. It is more than a convenience. It is an essential lifeline for workers, students, tourists, and businesses. Without it, the flow of the city changes entirely. But what if suddenly the entire NYC train system came to a complete halt? No subways, no commuter trains in or out, no underground lifelines. The implications of such a shutdown would be both immediate and far-reaching, affecting not just transportation, but the entire economy, culture, and rhythm of the city. The first and most obvious impact would be transportation chaos. Every day, millions of people rely on the subway to get to work. The moment the train stopped running, these individuals would have to scramble for alternatives. Buses, already often crowded during rush hours, would be flooded with passengers. The streets would be choked with taxis, ride-shares, bicycles, and private cars. The city, which already struggles with congestion, would be brought to a standstill. Travel times would double or triple, and getting from one borough to another could become an hours-long ordeal. A commute from Queens to Midtown Manhattan, which might normally take 35 minutes on the subway, could easily take 2 to 3 hours by car or bus. For low-income workers, many of whom live in outer boroughs and work in service, retail, or healthcare jobs, this would be devastating. Missing shifts or arriving late could mean losing wages or even jobs. The subway is the great equalizer. It costs the same for a CEO as it does for a minimum wage worker, and it's the most efficient way to cross the city. Without it, inequality would widen. Those who can afford taxis or ride shares might adapt, but those living paycheck to paycheck would be hit the hardest. The shutdown wouldn't just be inconvenient, it would jeopardize livelihoods. The economic consequences would ripple far beyond individual workers. Businesses across the city depend on the flow of employees, customers, and goods. Retail stores in Manhattan might see sharp declines in foot traffic. Restaurants that count on lunch crowds from office workers could face empty tables. Large corporations could experience productivity losses as workers struggle to make it into the office on time or at all. The financial cost of lost productivity could reach hundreds of millions of dollars within just a week. In a city where time is money, a frozen transit system could freeze much of the economy. Tourism, one of New York City's major industries, would also take a heavy blow. Tourists rely heavily on the subway because it's affordable, fast, and connects them to virtually every corner of the city. Without it, navigating the 5 boroughs would become a logistical nightmare for visitors unfamiliar with the layout of the city. Hotels might see cancellations, tourist attractions could suffer lower attendance, and the overall perception of New York as a convenient and accessible destination would take a hit. The city's global image could tarnish if the shutdown dragged on. Emergency services would face their own challenges. Police officers, firefighters, and medical personnel often use the subway to get around quickly, especially when streets are gridlocked. Without it, response times for emergencies could lengthen, potentially costing lives. Hospitals in Manhattan could find themselves short-staffed as workers from the outer boroughs struggle to arrive. In critical industries like healthcare, even minor delays can have major consequences. The commuter rail systems that connect the suburbs to the city, such as the Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and NJ Transit, would also feel the strain. Many of these systems feed directly into Penn Station or Grand Central Terminal, from where passengers typically transfer to the subway to reach their final destinations. Without subways, these commuters would flood buses and taxis, adding yet another layer of congestion. The city's bus network, while extensive, simply doesn't have the capacity to handle the millions of passengers the subway normally carries. Environmental impacts would become apparent almost immediately. The subway is one of the most energy-efficient mass transit systems in the world, significantly reducing the city's carbon footprint. Without it, more people would turn to cars, ride shares, and taxis, leading to higher greenhouse gas emissions, more air pollution, and increased noise levels. New York, already grappling with air quality issues, would see a sharp decline in environmental conditions. The irony is that while the subway is underground, its absence would make the air above ground far worse. Socially, the shutdown could create a sense of frustration, anxiety, and even hostility among residents. The subway is a shared public space where New Yorkers from all walks of life cross paths daily. Its absence would fragment the city, making it harder for communities to stay connected. People might choose to stay closer to their neighborhoods rather than venture out, shrinking the cultural and social vibrancy that defines New York. Events, concerts, and nightlife would all suffer, as fewer people are willing or able to make the trek without reliable transit. From a logistical standpoint, keeping the subway offline would pose huge challenges for city planners. If the cause were a natural disaster, major maintenance failure, cyber attack, or strike, the path to restoration could be long and expensive. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority, MTA, already faces budget constraints, and a prolonged shutdown would deepen its financial woes. With no fare revenue coming in, the MTA might have to borrow heavily or seek emergency funding, potentially leading to long-term fare hikes once service resumes. For the broader region, the impact would be just as significant. New York City is the economic hub of the tri-state area, and disruptions in the city ripple outward. Workers from New Jersey, Long Island, and upstate New York would be affected, as would suppliers and businesses dependent on the city's markets. The subway is part of an intricate web of economic and social connections, and pulling one thread can unravel much more than expected. Historically, transit strikes and partial shutdowns have shown us glimpses of this scenario. In 2005, a 3-day transit strike brought parts of the city to a standstill. Businesses lost millions, streets became parking lots, and tempers flared. But those strikes were temporary. A complete, indefinite shutdown would be unprecedented in modern New York history, and the damage would grow exponentially over time. The resilience of New Yorkers would be tested. Some might adapt by cycling, walking, or working from home where possible. Others might look for permanent changes, such as moving closer to work or even leaving the city altogether. Real estate markets could shift, with higher demand for centrally located housing and declining values in areas heavily dependent on subway access. The urban landscape itself could evolve if people and businesses start clustering in more walkable areas. In the end, the loss of the NYC train system would remind everyone of just how vital mass transit is to a dense, fast-moving metropolis. It's not just about moving people from point A to point B, it's about enabling the economic, cultural, and social life of the city. Without it, New York would still stand, but it wouldn't be the same city. The constant energy, the spontaneity, the interconnectedness, all would be dulled. The shutdown of the subway wouldn't just stop trains, it would stop a way of life. A scenario like this forces the question, how prepared is New York for a major transit disruption? Investments in infrastructure, alternative transit options, and contingency planning are critical to ensure that the city can keep moving, even when the unexpected happens. The subway is often taken for granted, but in its absence, its value becomes crystal clear. New York is a city built on movement, and without its trains, that movement slows, and with it, the very heartbeat of the city.